here, Goldie, and I am here with Scott Scharf. I am the co-founder of Fiskal. Fiskal specializes in fixing finance and ops for product-based businesses. And we are on a mission giving smaller business big company infrastructure and insights. So I spoke with Scott about how he would like to be introduced, and he said he would like to be called the godfather of e-commerce. So Scott, over to you on that note.
Yeah, no, that was I was having fun, but that is actually very entertaining. My whole focus is helping e-commerce entrepreneurs make their businesses better by providing, e-commerce business optimization services, helping, these entrepreneurs who are probably very strong at marketing or product or management or other areas in the business, but you can't be strong in every part of the business. And because of my experience, over the last 15 years, dealing with hundreds and then talking to thousands of e-commerce businesses, really helping them coach the entrepreneurs, optimize their accounting and finance from wherever they're at, from whatever systems they're on, helping them optimize operations, doing tech stack reviews, and then really overall making their businesses run better for them and their current team, leveraging technologies in smart ways, and then making them actually exit ready, not to push anybody to exit. So I just want to help them have amazing businesses, and really, in our conversation, help them have the right mindset, framework, and some information and tips on how to make the best decisions for where their businesses are now.
Yeah, for sure. And you're pretty well positioned to do that. But tell us just quickly, why are you well positioned to do that? What is your background?
So I'm a very long-term IT geek. Okay. I did IT consulting for decades, and then I worked at a global multinational as a subject matter expert in audio, video, web conferencing, and have always run projects from small businesses to global multinational projects. But in 2011, my wife and I started Catching Cloud's, the first e-commerce accounting firm. So we were immediately in the cloud on Xero. We only worked with e-commerce businesses. We had about 5 or 6 years before any other accountants caught on to the cloud, let alone e-commerce as a business. And we've coached and mentored and made many friends like Pierre here in this space. And we're just actively involved in it. And during that time frame, I became an expert in e-commerce businesses, the entrepreneurs, of course, their accounting and finance, operations, and their tech stack. And then I'm just actively involved. I consult to the SaaS companies in this space to help them make better products, whether it's inventory management systems or accounting tools. But I'm just passionate about solving all the different problems so that everybody can actually leverage technology and have amazing businesses. And I just get to work with great people. I love working with entrepreneurs.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, and congrats on that progress. I think when we first met back in, I think it was 2020, I always thought that it sounded like what you were speaking about, and then ever since our relationship grew, that's definitely ring true. So excited for collaborating on more projects and working together. But that brings us to our our session today, which is centered around Cin7 positioning and the larger landscape. And I think what my intention here is to just provide context to those that doesn't understand how Cin7 fits into the larger landscape of IMSs. There's a lot of terminologies, ERPs, cloud-based accounting. So just coloring that in a bit and just providing some insights from an expert like yourself on items like these. So to kick off, let's just quickly speak about the competitive alternatives of Cin7. And I think if you can provide like a quick oversight of how you understand the market and just paint that in a bit for us.
Yeah. So when I'm looking, and I've got my own comparison matrix of over 70 solutions that's 300 fields deep that I'm constantly either continuing to talk to platforms I already know where I have relationships, and new solutions almost every week, both to help sellers that are already running them to get the most out of them, or are where I'm helping people select it. So, I've been talking about inventory management. This is probably the third iteration of a comparison matrix that I've done. So I think about this a lot. I talk to, of course, private equity and marketing and other people doing research in this space. that an inventory management system is so critical for e-commerce businesses, because whether they are drop shipping or a 3PL, have a 3PL fulfilling their product, or they're shipping through FBA, or they have their own warehouse, they're a fulfillment business. They're also a product business and a marketing business. And most people don't realize if you're an e-commerce business, you're a technical business, okay? But a critical piece about this is not just having products and selling them, is actually getting them to people. And Amazon with FBA has set the expectation for, you know, both really good communication. So even if you can't get it there the same day or within a few days, that you have the communication there. So it's pretty critical. And that the only way for these businesses to grow and scale is to have an inventory management system that does a few key things. You create purchase orders to buy the products you're going to sell, okay? And track the costs and be a trusted source of costs. The next thing, it is your trusted source of what you have in stock. So you know you don't run out or you don't oversell things, okay? This is also critical for accounting. It also pushes inventory quantities up to Shopify, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, or if you're doing FBM, fulfilled by merchant. It has to do those core things well, and then other specifics around them and connect to the channels. But it is one of the main tools where you should have every transaction, okay? So all of these tools have been around for years. Cin7 is actually now a combination of Cin7 and 2 other products, Dear Systems and OrderHive. They've been around for a long, long time. You have a number of tools in that, tools that are applicable for 1 million to, let's say, 30 or 30 million larger businesses. There's a core of, I would consider them SMB tools. And Cin7 is one of the core ones. It also has the most users. So there are dozens and dozens and dozens of companies that are under 100 users. They're specialty and they're focused and they're growing, and then they're merging or dying or whatever else. But there's a core set of ones that are that have thousands of customers that are providing value, that have been around for years, that provide, you know, solid services. And Cin7 is in that top tier, in the top probably 3 to 5 systems out there. They also are running, depending on the numbers, and the safe marketing numbers are about 8,000 customers worldwide, which makes them almost 50% bigger than anybody else that's out there. Then you've got really a Finale or a Katana or a few other providers out there that are in the thousands of customers. And that means you've got stable, you're going to have products that evolve, but they're very much a SaaS company. They're not building custom solutions. They're out there. So they're just one of the core systems that's out there that has, and Seller Cloud and a few others that have a very breadth of tools that you can get probably 80% of the functionality you need out of one tool without either having to add on a whole bunch of other tools or do customization around it. So once you get to a tool like Cin7 or Finale or a Seller Cloud, you can plan on that tool being there and evolving and adapting mostly with the right help and implementer, because it's more important, in my opinion, for the implementer and who's running it than picking the right tool. And you still have to pick the right tool. So hopefully that gives you kind of a broader view. There are a set of tools, but once you get on this tool, you really should be able to run this tool for years and years and years and not need to replace it. You might have to customize it and optimize it and tweak it and build other processes around it, but you're not looking at changing out a tool that if you start with something small, let's say Zero Inventory Plus, okay, which is meant for sub 1 million, sub 500K, that if you start using that tool, that's great, but you might outgrow it when you get to 2 or 3 million. With the Cin7, whether you start at 500K early or at 2 or 3 million, where you really should be implementing, getting off spreadsheets and implementing an inventory-based business if you want to make it to 5 million while retaining your hair, then it can continue to grow until you get to 30, 50 million, or even 100 million. And then what I've always said in many things is if you get to the point where your business is so complex that you have to upgrade to NetSuite or a larger ERP, sell. It is a completely different business. It'll eat up about 20 or 30% of your current EBITDA profit, and you won't ever make it up. So well, there's my comment there. But it is really one of the core solutions that most people should consider, and then compare whatever other solutions, but always compare it to another solution. Don't just look at one solution and then pick it. Use it to compare to other systems.
Good. Yeah. Thanks. That was a mouthful. I want to pull it back slightly. So who would you say is Cin7's largest competitor or biggest competitor?
Depends on
Competitors.
what people are looking at. It's probably going to be a Finale inventory. Or feature function wise and impact on sellers, I probably do Seller Cloud. You'll see Katana a lot in marketing. I mean, you've got a bunch of those core people. Of course, there's Fitful that's out there as well as another major one from a QBO longer term perspective, but they're going through a transition of being a desktop product to SaaS, and they're kind of half pregnant in both. So overall, between the two products, they've got good solutions, but you have limits on either side.
Yes.
They're going through an evolution, which is what Cin7 did 2-3 years ago when they acquired multiple businesses and combined them.
Got
So
you. Okay.
everybody's always going through. I know inside baseball. I know more about what's going behind the scenes and beyond all of those other businesses.
Interesting. We'll get back to this IMS landscape, if you will. But what do you find? Where's most of the companies that's going towards this IMS market, if you will? And we'll find what we call this IMS market. Like we'll get a tagline for it so that it maybe rings more true, and then we can start, I don't know, educating the market on what to call this, because I feel like it's a bit unclear at the moment, because you get ERP on the top and you get sheets at the bottom, and then we have like this IMS, which I don't think is like a very common acronym that is used, but we'll unpack that. But so you find that a lot of clients come from the Excel, the sheets world, and then migrates to the IMS world. Is that right, or do you find that there's loads of others, let's call it below this 1 million tier?
Well, so there's a certain point where a business hits a certain level of complexity or maturity where they need better financials, they need better efficiency, they don't know where their products are, okay? The other key thing in this current market with trade wars and all the other challenges to e-commerce businesses is you need to have accurate inventory counts and accurate data, and then you need demand planning so you're buying the right products. You just can't buy the wrong products and hope you can sell them, you know, and break even without being careful. So you've got the different businesses. So what you'll have is businesses will start with spreadsheets and reinvent the wheel. Some will try to do tools. You also have people that are Amazon only that have a range of tools like Seller Board and others that kind of sort of give them a P&L and like keep track of the inventory that's out at FBA. Or you have sellers that are using a 3PL where they just put all of the responsibility on inventory quantities and receiving on them. And then they realize that, you know, the 3PLs lose thousands of dollars of product and they have no idea that it happened or where it happened. And so when you're looking at it, there's a certain point where they hit the wall where they need better financial numbers in e-commerce business. They need more efficiency, or they have a spreadsheet, equation gets copied wrong or corrupted, and all of a sudden they can't trust any of their data, and then it negatively impacts their business. And they're like, there's got to be a better way is really the answer. I've really said it was cloud inventory before. Now it's inventory management systems. That it really is purchasing products so you know what you've purchased and what you should be buying. That's demand planning. It's the keeping track of your costs. That is the fundamental for everything. Are you pricing your product properly? Are you profitable on your products? Are your financials ready? If you do not have a way of tracking your costs and keeping those up to date, everything's broken. Okay. It's the first thing I do when somebody doesn't trust their financials is you have to get their costs under control and go back in time. It's a huge project, but if you do it right as you go, that's never an issue. And that's one of the key things that people run into. And then it's being able to track your inventory and do the other things and support the humans. There's a certain point where everyone wants the least amount of humans doing smart human work, being supported by technology versus hiring 3 more, people offshore to keep your spreadsheets running. Not the best and most valuable use of your time and effort. And then if you don't have trusted information, then you can't make better business decisions. It all comes down to overall, even though I talked about it before, e-commerce businesses, you're a data company. Okay. If you haven't realized that you're a data business, whether it's your average order value or your ROAS or your conversion rate or your sales or your profitability or whatever else, you're a data business. And if you don't have solid data, you can't make the right decisions to even know where you stand, let alone where you're going.
Right. And just to make it a slightly more tangible in terms of specific characteristics. You mentioned the 500,000 turnover. You mentioned 1 million. Where in your mind, like, does this tier sit? Like, if you have to map it out, because I also want to quickly touch on like let's call it the full blown ERPs and just discuss slightly. You mentioned again about being super careful about migrating to that, ensuring that you stress all your assets before you potentially even sell, before you move over to that world. But let's just quickly go through the ranks. Like, give me your tiers, how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, when you're below 500,000, I mean, really the survival rate is if you can make it to 1 million. Okay, can you get there smarter? And below there, you just have to be as scrappy as you possibly can be. Okay, so leveraging a spreadsheet, Excel, Google Sheets, whatever, is a good way to get started. I run into sellers that have almost no tools, and I have sellers that have dozens of tools. Okay. I tend to recommend, even under $1 million, that you should budget $300, $500, $1,000 a month for technology to optimize your business. If you do, it'll help you get to that point. And that's typically a bunch of smaller tools and not necessarily an inventory management system. Or you can take the bulk of that budget and put it into an inventory management system earlier, and then you can focus on other things of your business. But really, it's at 1 million. Somewhere between 3 and 5 million, you will be fighting an uphill battle, pushing a boulder uphill, if you haven't automated your purchasing, receiving, tracking inventory, and getting accurate data. Okay, and it'll severely impact your ability to be able to get accurate information to feed into your financials, to have accurate financial information to know where you stand. Okay, it is just, it's really in that space. Then over 5 million, it's a matter that you should already have one. But if you already had one before that was smaller, it's probably about the time you should really question and challenge, are you on the right platform? Are you on a longer term platform that's going to take you either sanely to 1 million more per month, or let you run sanely at 5, 6 million and you're happy and you're pulling the money in and going on vacations with your family? Or is it going to get you to 5 million in 2 years? Or from 5 million to 10 million in 2 years, and then maybe 20 million in somewhere before, and then you might think about doing whatever. There are certain things that are going to really hold you back, and having the wrong platform in this case that either doesn't integrate with your channels or integrate well with EDI, or let you expand into B2B and wholesale, if that's how you're going to expand out, where I'm seeing more sellers going into wholesale after Shopify only and Amazon and maybe another channel, versus a whole bunch of other smaller channels, is going into wholesale is where it's really I'm seeing a lot more growth over the last couple of years. Will that platform support it? And is that platform evolving? Are they enabling AI? Are they adding new functionalities? Do they have an open API? Do they integrate with Zapier, no code, low code, so that it can be a foundation and you don't have to reach out this best of breed core tool, and then you can do the other things that are unique to your business without changing out kind of part of the engine of your business?
Yeah, go on. Like, in terms of revenue, you stopped at like 10. I'm curious to understand, like, if you get to 20, 30, 40, where, like, how do you think?
When you get above that level, my recommendation, it's better to invest in a data warehouse or Airtable and customizations for things that are unique around your business and your leveraging tools. But it's also important to make sure you don't ask, like, don't track your inventory quantities in your general ledger, Xero or QBO. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't ask your income tax CPA to do your bookkeeping. Okay. Like, ask the right tool to do the right thing. All right. So when you get larger, now there is a point. So in my view, in this below $30 million space, an ERP is primarily just an inventory management system with a built-in general ledger that replaces Xero or QBO. Okay. That's the basics. ERP, enterprise resource planning. When you think of NetSuite or something else, it's like, oh, I have 50 trucks that I fill in, and I've got to do first in, last out planning of these trucks. Oh, and then when the stuff's delivered, then I have 20 service providers that install the tools and whatever else. And I want one system that gives me a single calendar that lets me track what I sold to whatever going on. This isn't a D2C, B2B, direct to consumer, B2B, product-based business. Okay. If you're just doing that, you're just doing that efficiently, even if you do it on subscription, more than likely you're taking a physical product and providing it to somebody. You're not doing a service or anything else. You don't need all those other things. And that's what you get when you go true ERP. Now, there are a number of solid e-commerce ERP systems that I do talk to people about when they're over 10 million or 20 million. I consider them and compare them to a Cin7 or Finale. And I would say more and more when I talk to businesses over 10 million, I'm comparing one of these ERPs that combines more functionality than others.
Which one, Scott?
So
Which ones?
we look at Zorosoft and Fulfill.io are cool ones. A new one that's out there that I'm talking to a lot of people about is DOS. DOSS is an AI-based, a little more dynamic, newer platform. And then depending on people, if they have a lot of customization or unique things, or they're doing manufacturing and they need quality assurance, quality control, then I'll talk about Odoo, Open ERP. But Odoo is a whole nother world of you have to have the right partner to implement it, and you need to hire a developer that's constantly improving this tool, okay? Because it's maybe 60 to 80% out of the box functionality, and then you have to customize everything. Versus it's a different mindset for a different set of things depending on what they're doing. I will see some businesses that are on Cin7 or Finale or others at that 15 to 20, 25, 30 million that they've built all this custom glue, and there's a certain point where even the glue, like spreadsheets, is starting to fall apart, and they now have already got the design for how their business runs. They've already figured all the different pieces, but it's too much work to keep multiple best of breed pieces. And then they can transition and migrate to this tool that integrates things and a better data set and some other functionality. So that's kind of the evolution. And then NetSuite I help lots of people move off NetSuite for all the right reasons. But it is just operationally, just the software itself, not counting the implementation. In all the ones I've seen, probably about a dozen last year, it's 4 times more expensive. Everything is more expensive when you go to NetSuite. Everything, which eats into money to spend on marketing, money to spend on people, money to spend on new products, or pull money out of your business or whatever else. It just increases your overhead, and it has a bunch of limitations.
Is there anything that you benchmark that move towards NetSuite? That's something that you can throw out there that could be like, when you do this, when you reach that revenue, consider NetSuite?
The biggest reason for going to an ERP is the main reason is when you've chosen for either financial, tax, or limited liability reasons, or just the way you're structuring your business, to have multiple entities. So if you have a US entity and a Canadian entity and a UK limited company and an Australian entity, you need a separate general ledger for each of those. And you need to be able to integrate and do intercompany communication and manage all of that. And then if you have supply chain and like manufacturing in one country, and then you're selling it in other countries. So once you've made the decision to go to that level, it can make sense. It gets to be a little clunky having a QBO file and a QBO file and then a third QBO file. And then most of these inventory management systems, including Cin7 and Finale, won't connect to multiple QBO files. So you end up duplicating. So you end up with 3 QBO files, 3 Cin7s, and then all of a sudden it gets to be you're expanding too many tools. We're just managing that as a whole full-time job and additional overhead versus consolidating and pulling those together into a single tool that'll let you look at your general ledger and inventory management. I'm looking at this country or worldwide or manufacturing, and it starts to pull some of those things together. That's where I start looking at that. Those are the most critical pieces. Otherwise, everybody I consult with, what decisions can you make now to keep your business simpler, keep your overhead, keep the efficiency going, and leverage technology in a smart way to deal with some minor, unique components or complex ways of things you're doing things to be unique about your business. But if you can focus that and then put that into a custom database or a data warehouse or some custom development, and then still have these tools that evolve if you're not investing them and other people are building more features that they consider to evolve underneath you, and you can leverage that.
Yes. I'm glad you went that route and not necessarily like just a straight up revenue. Like if you do 1 million, like consider it. So that's good. Correct.
It's all complexity.
That's a good answer. Yeah. So I'll add just something. I think it's no secret that Fiscal is putting all the eggs in one basket when it comes to Cin7. And I think part of what we are setting out to do as well is to really stress the infrastructure in terms of this IMS landscape with all of these tools combined, and see how far we can go north of the 7 figures, because we believe that with the right processes and a little bit of customization and some proprietary tools that's included in this ecosystem, if you will, you can go pretty far. So the jury is still out to see how far we can take it. We have a few clients that's doing really well on it, but we'll keep you in the loop of how well that goes. So on the Cin7 note, again, I don't want to go too deep in comparing tools here, but specifically for Cin7, where do you feel that they win really quickly? Like, what is it that you feel that they do better than the alternatives that we covered? And let's go more on the IMS market and not necessarily the tiers above and below them. And then also, what do they not do as well? Like, where do you feel that the alternative does better?
Yeah. So right now, I would say one of the key things that's critical to everybody is demand planning. In my opinion, every inventory management system that doesn't have an AI-based, robust, deeply integrated demand planning solution to help people understand when they're overstocked, when they're out of stock, velocity, and help them decide how much to buy of their purple widgets, okay? That they've already decided on the widgets they're selling. If they don't have that integrated, they will be at a disadvantage. So Cin7 bought Inventora, which is a very solid solution, and they're deeply integrating it. So they're a little bit ahead of pretty much everybody else when it comes to that integrated demand planning of, I've already decided what I'm selling. How many should I buy? What's too many? What's too few? What's not selling? They're ahead there. They're pretty robust. I would probably also say they're ahead on actually building AI functionality into their product, both their first tier support, but their IDR, their ability for you to take a purchase order from your wholesale customer and drop it in and have it OCR/AI read it and autofill it so a human doesn't have to type in all that stuff. They're focused on a number of those things, including being able to auto create purchase orders and other stuff. So inside their app, they're doing some really neat stuff that's ahead of everybody. They do have a very strong quote to order to invoice, whether it's manual direct sales or wholesale B2B sales, including payment processor integration with their new and deep integration with Stripe. Okay, so if you have that, when I'm consulting businesses, you can do a little bit of wholesale on your Shopify site, and then people try to create purchase orders inside their general ledger, Xero or QBO, and then they have to also enter it somewhere else or enter it in their 3PL to get it to ship. That should live initially, unless you grow really big, in the piece. So they're very strong there. Amazon, they're good, but they're probably have the third or fourth best. So it's not worse. Amazon integration, so they're missing some of the automation, and everybody needs Amazon and the tools to make that as efficient as possible, because Amazon just creates a new fee. Just during this conversation, they created a new fee and another way to screw over sellers. Okay, like, and
I actually think they recently rolled.
Yeah, in 2011. Go ahead.
I just wanted to interject that I actually think they rolled out a new Amazon integration. If it's not rolled out, it's being rolled out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But go on, please go on.
Yeah. In 2011, when we first started, we built an Access database because there were no tools for Amazon to pull in the settlement statements and figure out all the accounting. There wasn't an A2X accounting or anything else. Every 2 weeks, when we download the settlements for our clients, there'd be new fees. Early on in 2011, every 2 weeks there was a new fee. The goodwill fees showed up, and all now there are hundreds of fees. There were just a dozen or 2 dozen, and every 2 weeks there was a new fee that Amazon made up. And we had to troubleshoot it and figure out, and now it's possible to do. Otherwise,
let's go the inverse. Let's go the other way. What do you feel that? Well, you touched on a few of them, but maybe just 1 or 2 more. Where do you feel that the alternatives are maybe ahead?
Yeah, I mean, Finale and Seller Cloud are ahead on their Amazon integrations. Okay, so features and functions, they're all integrated. The data comes through clean. It's not that they're bad. They have additional functionality to let you manage the craziness that is Amazon and primarily FBA. Okay,
Right.
I would say, well, Cin7 and Finale, in my opinion, have the best accounting integration, and you can probably provide a link to the video I talked about automated accounting. Almost everybody else has lousy accounting integrations, no matter what they say. And the point that almost all of them, I'd recommend you have an air gap, that you don't use their integrations because they're going to push too much information, the wrong information, and corrupt your financials, using a bunch of them for really anybody but those two. What else?
I mean, that's good.
Yeah, manufacturing. Yeah. Cin7 Core is good on manufacturing. They do have limits. That is one where you should stop, write down your requirements, and truly compare to the other tools like Finale and Katana and a number of others that do manufacturing management, and really dig into the details and trial multiple tools, just because it's so nuanced. But they do have.
Is there anything specific? Is there anything specific you can bring up?
No, I mean, they're all unique. I mean, it's not broadly aware. Like Cin7 touches on all the key things. They don't have any gaps. Well, all of them in this IMS space don't really have a solid QA, QC functionality. You have to go, and I'm looking for multiple external ones to bolt on to Cin7 because they just don't have it. I've had a few customers go to, for a lot of other reasons, go to like Odoo or other solutions, so that they have that integrated QA, QC, quality control functionality that flows in. I don't know. Well, all of them are weak on managing. Nobody's really good at managing contract manufacturers. So everybody's trying to pull a bunch of shipping into the, or manufacturing into the US and go, I'm going to work with this injection mold company and this company, this company. And what they don't do is they have a whip that if it's all in your own warehouse, you can manage it. But if you take whole chunks of it, it kind of goes into limbo in their internal process. And then you have to build extra processes around it to track it going back and forth to another manufacturer, other pieces coming in. And it's just not seamless. To me, that's the biggest gap that I'm seeing, is that people aren't just building a Tesla factory where they do all of it and they're refining the raw materials right there in the same building, that you have to segment out different pieces of it to get to a whole, and that it gets a little clunky, but all of them are clunky on that. So those are the things. I mean, otherwise, they've got all the other basics. All the major players integrate with all the other tools, and they all integrate with the main channels. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's really similar. Everybody just needs to focus on what's unique and what the top 5 or 10 priorities in their business are, and make sure whatever tool they have does that. And then if it does, setting up an IMS is not a simple thing. You need to hire someone like Fiskal, who not only will implement it properly from a technology perspective, which I recommend almost every Cin7 implementation should be done by an external specific provider that's a partner. And Cin7 does actually have the best partner network, which I think is a major strength for them, or partners around the world that you can engage with to do this properly. And that it's a 2 or 3 month process to get it implemented up and running, and that you need to spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And if you don't, you are not going to get the full value out of the tool.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point. I feel like there's so much I can unpack of what you just said, but I want to move on. There's 2 more questions. Let's cover that. The first one is, you know, we speak a lot about like what is the value of implementing something, right? And again, like let's stick to implementing Cin7. But I had a client about 2 weeks ago, you know, mentioned something and it stick with me. And he said, you know, they were on QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Enterprise, whatever you want to call it, and you know they've now migrated to the cloud-based page. And he really was identifying the specific features that Cin7 additionally have. To your point, demand forecasting, material resource planning, all of these nice shiny things. But what was really interesting is you mentioned, you know, if we just duplicate what we had, we just want to get to that space first. Like we just want to get to this where everything's working as it did. Okay. So before we get to the shiny things, my question relates to what is the value for you for implementing something like the IMS? Like, I don't want, again, not detail, just like what should be the value? What is the value that you should derive of getting to this, let's call it the cloud world, and having the seamless ecosystem of a Shopify, a Cin7 or Finale, and a QuickBooks or Xero? In your words, like what is that value that you get?
The value is that you, especially when you're talking spreadsheets, don't really connect anything unless somebody knows how to use Zapier and do some custom coding and some advanced stuff. Okay. Versus I'm a big believer of best of breed. Pick the right general ledger for you, the right payroll tool, and let those evolve. Okay. Don't expect the general ledger company to be really great at payroll. Okay. And the same thing about your consultants, and like, I don't have the electrician work on my plumbing. Okay. You want to ask the right tools to do the right thing when you do that, but then you need to make sure that they're the right tools for you and that they integrate and communicate well, that they actually flow data. Because I'm always trying to help everybody get to zero data entry, not just single data entry. Most of the time when I look at people with spreadsheets, you have the same data being entered in 6 or 8 places. Okay. So where's the value? You've got the value in time. You will save your own, after you've implemented the time and money to get it implemented properly, okay? It will save time, okay? It'll save a ton of time that data will come into the system and post it appropriately where else it needs to be, okay? That's a huge thing in saving time, okay? Then there's a certain point of scale and speed. Keep in mind how fast these e-commerce businesses are going. You're gonna burn out your employees, especially the good ones that are responsible employees. They have a great work ethic because they try to do all these things. As an e-commerce founder, the value should be you should provide them the tools, that these tools push them up, that allow them to do their job with less effort. They don't have to memorize things. They don't have to buffer and remember everything in the warehouse or every purchase order status or everything else. And that you can build a process around it, and somebody can go on vacation, or the founders can, that you truly can set up systems that consistently run. And then it just builds efficiency. I talked to a seller today that can, on a push, they can ship out maybe 20 or 30 orders a day. Okay. And they had Father's Day and they all worked extra long and they got 72 orders out the door. Okay. What they want to do is improve their efficiency. So the same staff working normal hours can get 50 orders a day at an increased average order value. That means by improving efficiency, from this year, they'll go from a $1 million to a $2 million business with the same staff, with them being saner. So you have consistency with the same staff that are happy working for your business, because we all know the huge cost and time and effort. And, one of the worst parts of being an entrepreneur are employees. Okay. And you can't completely replace it with AI or robots or anything else, no matter how much you dream today. But there's real value that if you're going to build a goal that we're going to double our revenue, preferably double your profit, I don't care what the revenue that applies to that is, and how you're going to get there, the only way you truly can get there, other than frameworks like entrepreneurial operating system and some standard operating procedures, is leveraging technology as smartly as possible. Okay. So there's a huge value in making smart decisions. Leveraging technology will help you meet your goals, and whatever your value is, that's the value. You're going to see that value, profitability, and efficiency. But in my view, and I don't know how to put a dollar amount on it, but actually having accurate financials and accurate data to make accurate decisions in the moment, like in real time or daily or monthly, is gold. My whole focus has always been helping people get to detailed, accurate financials so they can make great business decisions. Because if you have wrong information, you can make bad decisions.
I almost said amen after that. That's really good. That exactly. Accurate infrastructure for insights, right? It's and I guess efficiency, time. Yeah, it just makes so much sense. So, final question from my side is around Cin7, and I think the trend that we're currently on. I feel we touched on the IMS market. I still struggle to communicate exactly, where all of this sits in a positioning framing, if you will. we'll end with that part of the question. My first question relates to the Cin7. What is the trends that's happening at the moment that you feel companies like Cin7 and Finale are, making a push where previously the space was a bit more quiet?
I don't know if it's ever been quiet. Maybe it got quiet for a little while. It's funny. I thought there was a ton of consolidation, and now I'm just seeing a ton of companies explode because there's just nobody knows all the impacts and what's going on underneath the scenes with all the AI and other changes. But it really comes down to there are certain decisions that you want to make from business. So picking Xero and QBO and then the right accounting partner to manage your accounting are one of those decisions that you can just make. If you pick some random company you haven't heard about, okay, or some smaller tool, it's one of those decisions. Are you going to get fired for picking one of these tools, or have you made the wrong decision? Okay, Cin7 is one of those worldwide companies. They have lots of financial backing. They're one of the IMS companies that has already gone through a private equity purchase. So you don't have to worry about Some people don't want privately held companies. They've already gone through that process. And that as long as you go in with your eyes open, partner with the right people, for most cases, I rarely see where Cin7 needs to be replaced and it was the wrong decision. Okay, it could have been poorly implemented. People may not have opened up support tickets or hired someone to customize and optimize it when they hit the wall or hit issues. Okay, or have done enough training. But it's not one of those tools that I'm consistently ripping out. Now, I'm not going to put down, but there are a number of tools that have major feature gaps around master slave variant SKUs where they literally can't do that. And that breaks businesses that do kits and other things. And then I've gone into them and they've wasted a huge amount of money and then it will never work for them. Okay. So it's one of the tools, the same thing with Finale and a few other solutions. Once you have them, you really can commit to them, but you have to continue to invest in it. It's not just, oh, great, I pay my whatever X amount per month and I can forget about it. You can't. Okay. But if you go in with that mindset, it is definitely one of the small set of tools that once it's in place and you have the right partners and the right staff and you get up to speed, it can be a fundamental core component that you can treat as a solid foundation to grow your business and not have to worry about changing it every few years. Now, if you have dramatic changes in your business, you go international, you buy 3 other companies or whatever else, may or may not be, but it's well-rounded enough that it won't really change. So it's one of those tools that you don't have to worry about changing and you can focus on marketing or data warehouse or AI or other technology tools and other things around your business and not have to worry that every year, every 2 years, you're gonna have to go back and change it out. So that would be what I would say from a positive. There are other products that are like that, but Cin7 is definitely one of those ones that when people are having challenges with focus and a little bit of investment, investment, you can make it work for your business.
Okay. Yeah. Good points. Final questions around positioning. And again, like I keep on bringing up positioning, but it's important for me because I see in the market sometimes how difficult it is to actually compare Cin7, Finale, Unleashed, all of these tools, right? So would you, if we think about like segmentation, would you throw it in the ERP box? Would you throw it in the cloud-based accounting box? Would you just create your own category, which is called IMS space? Like what is the easiest way for someone that's never heard of what we're talking about? Like where do you classify it? So that
it's a cloud inventory management solution. I like the fact they don't do accounting and they're not trying to do accounting. Now, there's some people that were on Deere systems from years ago where Deere tried to do sort of accounting stuff that's still, you can still find in the product, but it's not live. It's not being invested in.
Doesn't have a general ledger.
No, it's not an ERP. They are very much focused on optimizing inventory management as well as B2B wholesale manual orders like that they're core. Purchase orders are great. Like if you order a purchase order, I mean, they have the key features. So if you order a bunch of product, you order 10,000 units and you decide to air freight 1,000 units that come in at a higher cost, it can handle that properly, both from updating your costs, being able to do FIFO, and it's really strong along those things. But it is an inventory management system. It does a little bit of order management. It really doesn't do warehouse management. You still need a ship station or other add-ons to do a complete function. They might expand into those other areas, but the fact is, it's for what it does in those core features, it does them very well, and it's continued to expand into some other pieces, but they're not trying to be all things. Like, I know so many other inventory management tools that are deciding to build a general ledger and compete against Xero and QBO. And I don't expect it. There are new, general ledgers that are in e-commerce that are trying to build an inventory management system that'll work for some smaller, non-complex sellers, but it's more about focus. Okay. And they're focused on this one area. There are IMS tools that don't do any manufacturing. So if you don't do manufacturing, you might get annoyed at a tool like Cin7 putting a bunch of money and releasing a whole bunch of new manufacturing features that don't impact you when you want them to do other stuff around Amazon or otherwise. There's still a SaaS company that has a product roadmap and can only release so many new features in any given time, so that, once you're on a Cin7, if you need a whole bunch of customized features, maybe it's not the right solution. You either have to customize around it, and that's the only time you need to potentially replace it. But it truly, it's an IMS. It does purchasing, receiving. It helps you facilitate and ship products, and as well as invoice and generate those other B2B growth. And it does those things very well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just feel like it's difficult to explain to someone what an IMS is if they've never heard of it, and that's sometimes where I feel you need to make it easier for them to understand like what you are actually like speaking to them about. I think we've heard about the IMS terminology for the last decade, so it's easier. But that's I guess the part of the fight is educating and having discussions like these to continue to do that. All in all, this was great. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Appreciate your time.
No problem.
I feel like there are other items that we can digress into, but for the sake of this, thanks for your time, Scott. Always a pleasure, and I hope to do this again soon.
Sounds great.